I got 3 degrees from a school that is not necessarily off the grid, but is not part of the mainstream school system, meaning not part of, the Department of Education. They don't have an EDU designation after their website name, for example, right? Although one school that I am an alumnus from before does. It's the Hypnosis Motivation Institute at hypnosis.edu. But the school that I got my bachelor's, master's, and PhD from, it's interesting that I learned so much from that, and the reason why I was inspired to get classes there was from all of the various different things that I was introduced to. So to biochemistry, microbiology, to organic chemistry, and especially to theoretical, experimental, mathematical, and applied physics, or as I call it, metaphysics, META, mathematical, experimental, theoretical, and applied physics. Those 4 pillars really had a big influence on me. And so the school that I went to, I somewhat hijacked the curriculum. And what I find is quite fascinating about doing that, because of the criticisms that people will have for certain organizations like the school that I went to, simply because they are not recognized as part of the United States Department of Education, and they have accreditation from organizations that are not affiliated with the United States government and things like that. And also because the school was founded by a church and founded by one person. And it's interesting because there's a few schools in the world that are recognized by the Department of Education that were founded by churches, so on and so forth, and individuals, and schools that bear individuals' names and things like that. But what the education did, being self-study, I was able to do it on my own pace. As a matter of fact, it technically could have taken me anywhere between 1.5 years to 2 years to finish the entire program, when instead I took 16 years to finish it. I started it in 2008 and didn't earn the bachelor's until 2020, the master's in 2022, and then the PhD in 2024. Part of the reason why it took so long was because I moved around a lot, I traveled, and I wasn't giving it focus. That's what happens when things are self-study. It helped me to also realize that in certain things, I do work very well with direction and certain kinds of pressure. The other reason is I partly felt a little bit of what some people might call imposter syndrome these days, but was really some sort of insecurity. And I'm borrowing largely from what Gary Vaynerchuk says about so-called imposter syndrome, that it's really insecurity. And maybe it really was, because what I did not want to do was put out something that was going to be in my name with a PhD that wasn't significantly formidable enough to be compared to other PhD theses from mainstream schools. And I know that's might be a little strange to some people, to think, well, why would you want to make something that is, comparable or on par with those when the school is a completely, different kind of entity? It's one of the reasons why it doesn't get the same kind of recognition as the mainstream schools, because it's pretty much like going to an ancient mystery school, like the cult of Pythagoras, with the where they were doing things like numerology, for example, and almost basically, worshiping numbers. And so, but it's because I wanted to cross that bridge. That's one of the reasons why long ago I came up with the acronym META for metaphysics, META physics, was because I wanted to bridge that divide between the empirical sciences, so basically physics and metaphysics. But the fascinating thing about all of that is that even without having a mainstream education and following the path that I have in doing something that is, off the grid, sort of. Not really, like I said, it's not really off the grid. I mean, the school is a proper church, which is the Wisdom of the Heart Church. It's got recognition by accrediting organizations. It's been around for over 20 years. They have a curriculum with over 80 courses. But the fascinating thing is about doing that program, I learned so much about the world and about people and about the various different things going on in people's minds. Basically, I learned a lot about consciousness because I learned a lot about people's belief systems and some things that are, you might know every day intuitively, but gave me some deeper insight into that. And then also some more obscure and even bizarre things I've learned about what people believe and what people are doing. But even more than that is just the path that I've taken and what I've found out about and discovered along the way about the nature of reality, and have established that existence is in fact eternal, and that we really are eternal beings, and that our physical body on this world is not separate from the mental or the so-called spiritual. Everything is really all one thing, and that's really what you logically conclude from understanding that the fundamental nature of reality is eternal. And what that means is that there's no reason to wait for some kind of judgment after your physical body dies to either discover or experience paradise or punishment. But in fact, the things that we do right now, every single moment, are part of our punishment or paradise. And we're all on a spectrum between those things. And you can consider there to be a perfect punishment and a perfect paradise. And we're always striving towards more perfection to get closer towards paradise, usually, most people, right? Not everybody wants the same thing. Everybody's on a path to a different experience and experiencing things on that spectrum to the degree of how they are thinking, speaking, and behaving. And one of those things about the physical body being so important is that, again, our experience of life is part of that journey in which we can experience anything on that spectrum. And what I found over the years by having this dedicated focus that started with what I established online as hypno-athletics, but it was established before, and I made the statement that hypno-athletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. I had already realized by putting the hypno and athletics, right, and the exercising your mind together, realizing that these are basically, two sides of the same coin. And that what I was in fact doing is looking for ways to bridge that divide. And one of the ways that I have is in a similar way to what Bodhidharma did with the monks that became the Shaolin monastery as we know it today, which is, I found that through intense, rigorous, efficient, safe, and consistent, did I say that already? Consistent training, and also clean living, that's what the healthy living and self-defense part means. But all of them really are synonymous. The whole idea of universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense is my perceptics, my channels, my body is operating on as high a level as possible so that I can experience life to the fullest and get the best and the most out of it, because I'm functioning at this high level. And, I'm in a small percentage of people in my age demographic that can do the things physically that I can, that has the kind of strength, flexibility, endurance, and basically what I call hyper athleticism, where I'm literally actually, doing backflips and 540 spins and kicks. I'm jumping, running, crawling, climbing, squatting, playing, for hours every day, just like I was when I was a kid and a teenager. And so, even though the school that I went to, the University of Metaphysical Sciences, I realized I didn't say that before, I have discovered a life path that maybe the school wasn't necessary to do that, but it helped give me some guidance. It put a framework for me to look at the world in a certain way and to help frame it. Even though I don't agree with everything in the school. Like, I don't think anybody does agree with everything that the school they go to teaches. I don't agree with everything from the Hypnosis Motivation Institute or anywhere that I go. It was just a framework. And I used that framework to establish, as I said, to put something down into the world with my name that's going to have that PhD, one of those highest degrees that people, seem to revere sometimes, depending on what it is. But for me, this was a really high accomplishment for me personally, to do what I did, to create the kind of thesis that I did in something that fascinates me. Because when you think about what I wrote was about the intersection of cosmology and metaphysics. It was called Eternal Echoes, Metaphysical Inquiry into the Fate of the Universe. And that brings in all the things that I'm interested in, because it's how did the universe begin, what is up with everything in it, and how's it going to end. So that includes all the stuff that has anything to do with everything, right? It's astrophysics, space science. It's everything that's in there, all of the physics, the chemistry, the biology, what's everything going through, all the stuff that people talk about, dark matter, dark energy, black holes, all of the atoms, everything, the quantum mechanics, all of the pop things that people are talking, everything is encapsulated within this study of metaphysics and that intersection with cosmology. And so I'm really proud of the work that I've done and the follow-up studies that have come from that. And also, the main point here is that ultimately I'm really, in a way, defending the school in some way. And just the fact that because it's not a mainstream school doesn't mean that you can't do great things, or even if nobody else notices, feel great about accomplishing things for yourself. I have this body of work now that I've created that is in alignment with not only the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, not only with my studies and my practice and my composition of lyrics and music, not only in my 4 decades of martial arts practice, but also guided by the University of Metaphysical Sciences. And I have these frameworks in which I can reference to and show people that, this world that we live in, there's more than meets the eye, like it says in the Transformers, right? But that we really are all one, not only with each other, but personally in that mind, body, spirit trinity, and that it's the here and now, that we must take care of ourselves, that we must focus on clean living and not burdening ourselves down with toxic chemicals and toxic ideas and toxic behaviors. And in doing so, we can achieve the best that we possibly can in this world here and now. I am Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.